So far, it was a pretty negative response to having a police officer at IHS. And in addition, a couple of IHS seniors did another survey, which was for one of their statistics class, and in it, they took gender, grade, and race into account. Really, my survey was a blind survey because we didn't take those into account. But in their survey, they asked students to rate how safe they feel at IHS on a scale of 1 to 10. And they also asked how safe they would feel with a resource officer and how necessary they think it is for a school to use part of the budget to pay for this resource officer. And in the analysis section, you can see that 64% of students circled invasion of privacy for school resource officer, and overall the average safety rating for the high school was an 8.59 out of 10. 10 being the safest. And that's basically our data.
So on the proposal section, part of the student-to-student motto, I guess you could call it, is presenting solutions, student-led solutions to problems that the student thinks are currently at high school. And so this is an outline of our proposal to increase safety and address the concerns of staff and students at the high school, either in place of an SRO or in addition to an SRO. And again, this isn't to override anyone's authority. This isn't to disrespect anyone who believes in this. We're simply presenting this information and offering alternatives. And so the alternatives are in communication, safety, discipline, and student mental health services, and they're outlined for you here. And also, what isn't in these packets, but I think is important, is that if we do end up having a school resource officer, that there are certain measurements in place to make sure that it is as smooth a transition as possible, and that students are both familiar with the school resource officer, students both know what this resource officer can and can't do, and also that students feel comfortable with having a firearm in a high school. And so all we're asking really for is your consideration before you make a vote today. Thank you.
Oh, very good. I believe, Rory, did you not come to us at the end of the last meeting, or say someone else?
That was me.
Right.
Yeah.
Asking, should we go ahead and poll the students or do a survey? And sort of we encourage you to work with the administrative team, leadership team at the high school to go ahead and put this together. This is great. I appreciate it. And certainly there's those on the board that critique surveys to a great extent, but I certainly appreciate the input. And
just briefly, I think you expressed the concern that you, in doing this, you may be disrespectful or maybe challenging the powers that be, whether it's us, superintendent, the principal. Far from doing that, this type of engagement by our students honors everything that we are trying to do in serving on the board, being administrator. This type of well thought out, put together, reasoned approach to engaging things that affect your life is everything we want, and I don't think any of us could be prouder than what we see here in this type of engagement. So I'm not saying we're going to go your way, but this is great. So thank you.
But we'll certainly going to take a chance to dig into it, other than just glancing at it. But we appreciate that, and there's room for more board responses in a minute. But thank you. It's great. Great job. And Adam, highest section.
Good evening. I'm back here today. So I just wanted to give a few updates, just 3 items. First of all, on December 7th, a group of 11 teachers and administrators spent the day in Sabbatic Committee, where we listened to a day full of wonderful, amazing proposals, where teachers will do work that's going to benefit the teachers and the students in the district. The choices were very hard. Not everybody can go, and the choices were made. And next year we have a group of teachers who will be going out for part of the year, all year, to actually work on stuff that is going to benefit every student and teacher in this district, whether not all at once, but at some given point. You'll see those projects in about 2 years, because they don't go out till next year, and then they'll present the year coming back. So if you're still here on the board, you'll see those, the ones that are going to be approved here soon. And the people who were out last year will be presenting hopefully here soon. I've been working with Jenny and making sure they get on the agenda, so you'll be hearing soon the projects or the people who come back. It's amazing work, and it's work that's only happening here in Ithaca. It's not happening elsewhere, and it's one of the things that we can put on, the things that Ithaca is doing to drive education forward. The second thing is that I was present at the meeting at Caroline last Thursday, and the outpour and the support for teachers was amazing. I know a lot of the Caroline teachers were there, and they were very happy to hear the parents compliment them on all of the work that they're doing. And sometimes we teachers don't get enough of that, but it's nice to hear it in a public setting. Some of you board members were there, and you heard it as well. They're working hard in all the buildings, but specifically that school. They're doing everything they can for those kids and those families in that community. And then the last thing is just in light of everything that's happening and all the conversations that are happening in the media, I hope that when the budget conversations are coming up with staffing, I hope that there is an emphasis on keeping or increasing our mental health support, our psychologists, our social workers, and our guidance counselors. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. And another student, Nadara? Yes.
Nadara. Hi.
No, there you go. And your last name?
Kendall.
Very good. There you go. Okay.
Okay, so I know Roe's proposal said there were only about 13% of students that were in favor of a student resource officer, but I'm one of them, and I'm going to explain why I'm in favor of this proposal. So this past weekend, our nation has once again been torn apart by a tragic incident involving the deaths of students on campus. As a student, I am aware now more than ever of the potential dangers that I may have to face at my school. The lives of students is one of our nation's greatest treasures and one of our greatest resources. Our future as students is what will someday dictate the course of our country. I think that when it is our future that is in danger, it should be our primary responsibility to do our very best to protect the students. The placement of one trained officer on campus has the potential to save so many lives. The officer's response time to any possible scenario will be much faster than that of an off-site authority. In a situation where 30 seconds could mean the difference between the life or death of a student, I believe that this difference is crucial. Not only will this officer have the capability to react to scenarios quickly, but he will also have the effect of preventing such actions just due to his presence. The same way a visible police car on the side of the highway prevents reckless driving in that area, a police officer on campus will have the same effect at school. In the end, if we truly value students' lives so highly, I believe that the decision is obvious. We as students deserve to be protected, and we should be taking all the measures necessary to prevent any such terrible incidents from ever occurring again. Personally, I would feel much more at ease with someone on campus capable of defending me and my peers. While I pray the day never comes that I need protection, I am sure that on that day, I would be more than relieved to have that protection there. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent job. That's it for everyone that has signed up. Anyone wish to speak that has not spoken? Is that a yes? Oh, okay. No. So very good. And so we'll move on. Board responses. Anyone at this time? And I guess not. Well, sorry. Student rep. Sorry. Go ahead. Mike. Okay.
Okay. So this past Friday, I believe, the class of 2015 hosted a Home Alone movie night, which from word of mouth, I have heard that it was very successful. Sorry. There was a band concert Sunday, which was an amazing presentation, as well as a choir concert last Wednesday, where one of our hall monitors, Mr. Caldera, was a guest conductor. And tomorrow night there is an orchestra concert. And over the past week, Chinese students took a trip to New York City to visit Chinatown, and that was a very successful trip.
5th grades are coming out as many students and teachers are preparing to embark on winter vacation. Last Thursday, there was a suspicious item found in K building. IPD evacuated all of K, F, and parts of downstairs and upstairs G. In my opinion, this event showed both the community and our students that Ithaca High School has a plan for all emergencies, both large and small. Our 2 newest APs were able to adapt quickly and show our school their potential. As a student, I would like to thank our administration team for keeping the school organized in a time of nervousness and fear caused by this suspicious item. Although our administration team worked efficiently and streamlined in this recent event, it took approximately 15 minutes for IBD to arrive at the scene. In my opinion, an SRO in this scenario would have been extremely beneficial to both students and staff, and further exhibited the need of an SRO at Ithaca High School.
When we go and talk to our peers about the need for an SRO, there's sort of obviously a divide, as you've seen in the numbers that have been presented to you. But it's interesting because it really depends on how you frame the question. You know, if you ask, do you think there should be a cop in school? People are like, no, of course not. Like, that's an invasion of my privacy. But then if you ask things like, you know, after Thursday, do you feel that the response time could have been better or would have been enhanced by an SRO? Often that leads to a different answer. So I think how students view this resource or police officer will be crucial to how much in support or against students are to his or her presence. So I just think that how we frame the discussion and how we frame the question really determines the answers we get to it, even if it's a similar question at its root. Scheduling has already begun for next year at IHS, something that I don't have to deal with, but Mr. Powers certainly does, as well as other kids. And you know, I think this is the perfect time to talk about the fact that as students, small class sizes are almost unanimously one of the things that we look for and benefit from. You talk to almost any student, you know, they're looking for more attention from their teacher, and small class sizes really provide that for students. So, and I think all of our dealings with students, small class sizes has been a crucial factor that we consider very, very important to how well we learn. So we, all the students at IHS really hope that that's taken into strong consideration through the budget process.
Well done, Michael.
Yes.
You good? Okay. We'll go to LACS then. Any more board responses at that point? Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, so our site-based council is kind of having an ad hoc meeting this Thursday at 7 to try and create our school development plan, which we're going to try and have aligned with all of the district goals, and we're really looking forward to working on that. Auditions for the school spring musical are happening, I think, right after break. And this musical is actually written by a former LACS graduate, and it was done as the senior project. So that's, I think, a really unique thing and should be very fun to see. I'm certainly looking forward to it. This Friday we're having our annual winter holidays lunch, which we do during lunch and family group, so it doesn't cut into any class time, but it's a good chance for students to bond with each other, and it's a fun time, a good way to celebrate the holidays. Second semester is approaching soon, and so middle schoolers will be signing up for the second semester courses, and everyone will be signing up for the projects that they will take. There have been some concerns raised by students that they don't really know that they're able to take, that they're able to participate in some of the extracurricular activities offered at IHS. And so I think we're going to work on trying to make that more known to the students, but it's also been brought up that it might be interesting if there were more extracurricular activities that were offered based at LACS. And currently the only after-school program we have is a homework club. And then finally, our principal, Joe Greenberg, addressed the school about the tragedy that occurred last week, and he just made it known that anyone who needed help, there were people for them to talk to. And I think that was very good for everyone to hear at school.
You good, Bernard? Yep. Very good. Thanks, LACS. Any board responses at this point? Other than to mention that the orchestra is performing at 8 o'clock tomorrow night, for those who are listening at home, and for those of us who will be there at 8 o'clock.
When is the LACS musical? What was the date for that?
I don't remember the date. It's sometime.
Starting,
Yeah, it's just the auditions.
auditions, rehearsals. They got a ways to go. Elders.
Just a quick comment to all of the students to reiterate what Rob said earlier. I just hope you think we're doing as good and as conscientious a job as debating and conversing about all the issues as you've done. That's very impressive. I don't mean that as an old guy talking to young guys. It's just impressive. Thank you.
Briefly, I just wanted to address Adam's point about the presentations. We're excited and hopeful that we can try and do something a little different this year, and not only have the presentation shared with the board, but also figure out a way to have them shared with the whole community, because there are some good ideas that come out of that work. So we're looking forward to instead of just making it a presentation to the board, that we can actually share it, use YouTube and other things, or ICSD tube or something to share it more broadly and give the community some opportunity to engage in the ideas that are being generated. So we're hopeful to kick it up.
Just remember, the ones that are being presented this year were the ones that were approved 2 years ago,
Yep.
so we can't make new expectations.
Oh, yeah.
Going down the road, we can obviously have more conversation
Yep.
around it and see it coming up years from now.
Yeah, I wanted to say, you were saying the orchestra. I had the pleasure of seeing the band on Sunday afternoon. Had, 400 or 500 people in the auditorium. It was quite a nice event. And I just wanted to follow up with you. We were talking about class size. Are you saying your classes are too large now? Or are you trying to say you don't want them to be, you have a fear that the budget would make them larger?
Oh, no.
I'm just trying to understand what you were trying to say.
A lot of my classes, I would say, are too large, and
Define too large for me.
What are classes capped at?
Depends on the level.
It depends on the level. 30. There are some of my classes that have 30 kids.
Okay.
And again, it depends on the class. For science classes, you don't want 10 kids because it's hard to do labs and things like that. I've heard science teachers tell me, but I've also heard science teachers say that it's getting to be oppressive. So I think they're too big now, and there's definitely a concern in the student body that they're going to get bigger.
John.
Changing topics real quick. If folks look around and see all this wonderful, beautiful artwork that around, my understanding that Ms. Jenny Bishop and some other folks made that happen. I happen to miss the art reception today at 3 p.m., but I'm utterly amazed by our phenomenal growing cadre of young artists. They're all over the building, and please take a look around and see the wonderful work that our young folks are producing. So thank you, Jenny, and whoever else helped make that happen.
And I was able to be here at 3:30 or so, and saw parents' kids in multiple rooms. Bell Sherman, certainly Dan Bryman was here with a big group. Hugo Heights in the other conference room, and that's Bell Sherman here as well. Self-portraits that I'm looking at outlined in lights. So very fitting. I will only piggyback on Brad a little bit. I was at the Winter Band concert on Sunday. I was driven out of the house, frankly, by how poorly the Giants were playing, and my wife reminded me that there's a band concert.
Much better alternative.
So hey, instead of watching the Knicks lose again, there's always art to go to. And Wednesday, the winter concert, just because Jeremy Lin apparently can play basketball, I don't know. But anyway, that was last night. Anyway, so we're So Ed, when you have a chance, go out and see the kids. They do great work. We've seen great work here tonight, but very talented folks at the high school. Thanks to all the teachers, staff, leadership, etc., parents at home that make it all happen. But we're going to go on to the exciting consent agenda.
I'll move the consent as we amended it.
I'll second it.
It is a fairly short one, so there's a few change orders that were discussed at finance last night. And anything else to be spoken to? Not really. Personnel items were personnel reports. There's good stuff on the personnel report. Go ahead, Sean.
We pulled from the consent agenda the bids for some of the things for Marcos Flats. The folks may know that the building is coming down. We made a decision at the last facilities meeting to put those bids back out again, that there are some items that folks who may want those items, the public in particular, can go and bid in those items, and include things like some of the stone window sills, some of the exit signs, etc. And so I think Margaret said that those will be out by the end of this week.
By the end of the week.
And running through the end of the school year. And so we're encouraging the public who have an interest in some of the preservation of that building, if you want some of those items, to be on the lookout for that bid sheet coming out soon.
And the bid, Sean, does not need to be...
The bid could be a penny, could be $1, could be $1,000, could be out of the generosity of your heart, could be whatever you want it to be.
We can't give it away.
We can't give it away, right. But we're trying to find ways to do what we can with remnants of this building, as much as we can repurpose and recycle as possible.
As I was quoted several years ago in the paper, make the bid and I will give you the $1 if you please just take the stuff off-site. It is, Sean, but you do have to remove the items yourself. We cannot afford, taxpayers will not be delivering these products, these items to you. It is there. If you want them, take them, but you have to transport.
First.
That's right.
After,
bid, win the bid, and then
please don't invite people to just back their trucks.
Well, that's... I was on the thought of the bidding process here. So, but anyway, so we'll move on as soon as we vote on the consent agenda. All in favor? That's everyone minus Judy Maxwell, who is under the weather tonight. So that is why Judy Max is not here. So, Dr. Brown.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Andrew. As always, I appreciate the time. I would ask for the board's patience that I attempt to be as clear and focused with this superintendent's report tonight, because there's a lot on my mind. It's been a tough week for us all, and there's a lot on all of our minds and our heart. I was asked today by a staff member, why haven't I made a public comment or reaction to the tragic events of last week? And I have had a lot of conversations with staff, students, parents. 4,000 emails later, I'm getting back to every parent who has some concerns or worried about safety in our schools. Every student who's come up to me, every principal and administrator who's had questions or concerns. And we've been spending our time doing that. Please know that I have had many inquiries from the media about a response or a reaction to what happened last week. And I haven't responded to them. And I've said to a few in different regional and statewide media outlets that I need some time to think through this, because I don't know yet. I can tell you today, or a few days later, that I'm a different administrator, I'm a different parent, and a different leader because of what happened. I've hugged my babies a little bit harder the last few days. I've shut the computer down a little earlier and went home. I've been a different administrator when talking to young people and thinking about the concerns they're having every day when they walk into our buildings, or when they leave our buildings, when they're outside on the playgrounds, and if that sanctity outside on the playground, is that something that we need to shift or change? That thing we call recess at the elementary level? There are many questions going on in my mind, and I want to say I will have a public comment at some point, but I'm still working through it myself, and I'm working through it with staff and students and people who need us every day in the building. But as I said, there's been a lot of work that we have been engaging in for almost a year now around school safety. And I want to remind the public about what we've been doing. And one of the things on the agenda tonight, that's our discussion and conversation. We've been having that. We've been proactively trying to have that conversation as a community and as a board and the staff. Other conversations we've continued to have and have had is just school-wide and district-wide safety. We have these school-wide safety teams. Ironically, just last week, before the tragedy, we reconvened the district-wide safety committee. And we're taking on some very tough issues Do we secure? How do we secure the building? Do we have every door locked? Do we leave one door open? Do we leave them all open? Those are questions that are real questions that we need to talk about. Do we close classroom doors? Every classroom door, are they locked? Those are questions that our safety teams and individual buildings and district-wide have been having conversations about. Over the past, since the tragic events, we revisited those conversations again. There's been a renewed sense of urgency for them, and we're going to continue those conversations. So instead of reacting, we're responding, and we're thinking through what it's going to look like for our schools and our community as we think about safety and securing our buildings. Other things that we've been thinking about, in the midst of all this, we're also dealing with this persistently dangerous designation that was that was designated for one of our elementary schools, which we struggled with. The reactions and the responses to that have been something we've spent a significant amount of time dealing with over the past week. I wish to inform the board and the community that I'm in continued conversations with the Commissioner's office, and I'm confident that there will be some resolution as far as the designation and the process and what should have occurred, what shouldn't have occurred, the reporting. So we're getting closer to that, and we'll continue to work through that. Also, Mr. Landau and other folks on staff, Mr. McDonald, has been working very closely with the school to clarify and rectify some issues that we know are apparent in the particular school. We're looking to move forward with some enhanced administrative support in the building, some other resource support to improve things. I know there's a follow-up meeting that's going to occur on January the 17th, which Mr. Landau is going to be coming back with some more data, some clarified data, some more answers from the State Department, some suggestions for how to move forward. So that work is continuing. That work was happening before the tragic event of last week, and we're dealing with that as staff and as a community. And again, the staff at Caroline is outstanding, and I appreciate how they've taken this issue on as a school community internally, and has helped the external community understand it as well. And then finally, this SRO conversation that after our last board meeting, and I received emails from the superintendents all over the state saying that our conversations about the SRO are deeper than any they've ever been a part of. And I informed them, and we have a couple of defense attorneys on our board too. But this conversation is one that's leading the work, and we've been leading that conversation. What's appropriate as far as a school resource officer? It'd be easy for us to just stamp it and say let's do it or not to do it. But we're having deep conversations, and I think tonight was another indication of the deep conversations we're having as a community about a school resource officer and securing our high school. All of these things are separate issues, but connected. And I would remind the board, I would have to remind myself, and I remind the community that we will continue to deal with these as separate issues, yet connected issues, but in a way where we're going to respond versus react. Again, I haven't responded to the media with a reaction to the tragic events because I would rather respond thoughtfully with what we're doing and will do versus just talk about emotions alone. So I wish to share that with the board, just an update on where we are with everything from designations from the state to where we are with safety plans to where we are with this upcoming conversation about school resource officer. And I want everyone to know that safety is the most important thing to us, period. Young people can't begin to learn unless they feel safe. So what we need to do as educational leaders is to ensure that, but also in a state that they feel normal and comfortable as well. So with that, I'm hoping to transition probably to a more happier.
A totally different topic.
If I may.
That'd be great.
Thank you to Ms. Earlene Carr who's been serving as our interim chief excellence officer. She's done an outstanding job. A position that we didn't fill last summer, but went into the fall with an interim as we continue to do a national search. I'm pleased to, and my technology hopefully will work tonight, to introduce the community to
Is this a live hookup thing?
Oh yeah, it's going to be live.
Oh, jeez.
Recognizing that Dr. Landau's Skype interview last year would have gone down here. I keep reminding him of that.
We've got that on tape somewhere, right? We do, actually.
Yes, we do.
It's on YouTube.
Yeah. It's in the archives.
And I have Dr. Zhao on here somewhere. Uh-oh. It may. Yeah, well, she's offline, but I'll go to her resume and Dr. Landau's going to text her to tell her to get back online.
We talked too long, perhaps.
Yeah, it probably timed out, so we'll try one more.
Can't one of the kids help you or something to get this thing going?
There you go. She'll come up shortly. But while we're hoping to connect with her. I'm recommending, well, the board has approved, that's what the recommendation is done, we've approved Dr. Lori Bruce Jowell, who is coming to us from North Carolina, the Tar Heel State. I got to say that one more time to make sure I'm saying that. Yeah, she's coming to us from the University, well, Chapel, she's a graduate of the University of Chapel Hill in North Carolina. Also a graduate of the University of Virginia.
I think we're going to say hi right now.
Oh, yes, she is there. Like, so we can see it. To give you a little bit of background, she's going to speak to the board here shortly, and I think we have her there. She's currently working in the Department of Education in North Carolina, and she's a regional consultant. She's working and consulting with schools throughout the region on everything from special education to RTI to grant writing. She's been a curriculum coordinator at the district level. She worked for the Chapel Hill Carlsboro schools in North Carolina. She was a curriculum coordinator at the district level. She was an assistant principal in North Carolina as well. She's also done classroom teaching, and she's been an assistant principal in several other schools in the state of Virginia as well. She may tell you some more about herself, but we're just excited to have her join our team. Again, the process is a month-long process. We had an open process, and we had candidates from all over the country apply, and she rose to the top, and she distinguished herself as someone who's thought deeply about our work, who followed our work, and thought deeply about how to take this position to move the work forward. So I'm hoping that you can... You hear all those good things we're saying about you, Lori? Let me make sure I get... There we go. Can you hear us? Lori, you there? Why did you do that? Why did you do that? I'm good. My reputation is... Are you there?
I'm good. Thank you.
You're happy about it?
Oh, thank you, because you just saved me.
I'm going in and out a little bit, but how can you hear me?
We can hear you fine. The fact that it's working a little bit, I want to quit while I'm ahead. I did quit while I was ahead.
The technology magic is gone.
It's gone. I've been out of the CIO role for too long.
That's the nicest closet I've ever seen.
That moment for you, man. We'll get it back here. Just a second.
I look forward to people filling my buses.
Oh, yeah. Nobody starts vacation for a while, Dr. Brown, so, we've got lots of time. I never go anywhere, so no trips. No. We're not going to ask about, go ahead. I'm just trying to kill time for you.
Thank you for doing such a good job. Are you back, Lord? I think we have...
Yes. My screen is doing some wacky things, but I could hear you just now.
Just say something nice and I can get you off before it messes up again. How about that? But Lord, I've just introduced you to the board and the community. I apologize for the bandwidth issues, which I think they are, but we may try her later then. How about that? All right. But we tried, but I think people got a sense.
We heard the voice, we saw the face.
Start date, she will be starting January the 18th. 22nd. January 22nd, she'll be on board. And maybe then she can do this for you in person. How about that? Bad connection dropping here. All right. Well, I apologize for the technical.
And Dr. Brown, this is getting to the end point of the process of the reorganization of the administration building, the shift to chiefs, and certainly Matt, chief elementary officer, Jason Trumbull, who stepped up and is the chief secondary. The chief excellence officer, again, is in charge of
special education and professional development. Point person, but working collaboratively with everyone. With the question.
And we have, some of us have no bias against North Carolina, so I'm not sure that's it's not a bad thing.
We gotta get much
you mentioned a few things, and I just want to go back to the Caroline comments you made, and also mirror what Adam spoke out. I was present, and want to really thank Matt for taking the lead on this and working tirelessly to address any concerns. He's doing a great job at that. But the resounding comments that parents kept saying was how happy they were with the teachers and how phenomenal the teachers were. And that isn't something we hear every day, but it was comforting to know that while there are difficulties, they felt good about the teaching that was going on and who was there with their children. And that's, as a parent, that's something that you don't take for granted. So I really want to share that with the folks out there, that that's some of the dialogue that was going on. As far as this new position for the Chief Excellence Officer, I make comments as other board members tease me about, like, inspect what you expect. But, you know, this is what we expect. And using definitions and language that put things together where we want to move forward as a district is extremely important. And not giving up on a position or not letting it fall to the wayside is so important. Being persistent, get the right people in the right places to make this difference is what we need to continue doing to get where we want to go. And we're talking about excellence. We're not talking about good. So these are the differences that will move us forward as a school district.
Thank you.
And I'll just add on to Chris just a little bit, just reaction to the meeting last Thursday. Again, Matt did a great job. Matt was not allowed to sit down or take a drink for at least 2 hours, but eventually someone gave him water. But certainly what I took out of it certainly goes directly to one of our priorities was communication, and that we have to work very, very hard to make sure that we are able to communicate with staff communicating with parents, kids, students, and so that's a high bar. So we need to continue to really push forward and help our communication efforts, whether the technology works or not. So it's that person-to-person communication that cannot be replaced by the latest and fanciest piece of technology. But we won't dwell on that anymore. But thanks to Matt the other day. Thanks, Chris, for those comments. And Dr. Brown, do you have anything else? We're not going to try again right now, right? Okay. So you want to go ahead and
just give up.
So I'm on the board.
We like books. Books are a good thing. So Dr. Brown, if that's it for the superintendent's report, we're going to go on with the business of the day, which is school district business, and it's the student school resource officer.
I'll ask Mr. Powers to come to and I'll try technology. Give me a second here. Sure. I think I can get this to work. There we go. Yeah. If I can, sure. So, the board asked us to come back with some more thinking around this position, and we have thought much about it. We've had multiple conversations, and we wish to update the board on where we are with the process at this point. Knowing that ultimately we're hoping, if the recommendation is to move forward with this position, there would be a contractual service that we would enter into with the city of Ithaca and their police department. So we're ways away from getting to that contract. Again, having more and more conversations about what we think the position will look like, having more conversations with IPD. But Mr. Powell has a recommendation about the resource officer, but some other things as well for the board tonight to update you on, I think.
Sure. So, good evening, and thank you for having me back here again. I want to start out by first thanking Roe and Mansi for their work and efforts, and the students in the AP Statistics class that did the survey. After a pretty tough week last week and this week, as students have been processing things, it's heartwarming to know that our students feel safe at Ithaca High School. That, you know, in spite of it all, they come to school and they know it's a safe place to be because that's what we know it to be. And I think it's a testament to our students, to our community, to the teachers, and to the administration of the building that, you know, try to be proactive every day to ensure the safety of our students. And I think our students recognize that and feel good. I think the conversation and the dialogue the students have been sharing with you here this evening speaks to what Ithaca High School is. Right? It's a place where students do some really amazing things and engage in some really amazing conversations and approach topics thoughtfully, civilly, and engage one another. and have spirited debate. So as students have kind of stopped me in the hall and spoken amongst themselves and engaged in these dialogues, this is the type of engagement and empowerment of students that we've been talking about. And to see it come to fruition here tonight, unprovoked, unsolicited, but here, I think is a really powerful thing. Bear witness to it, so I'm incredibly proud of them. This evening, to really kind of frame our conversation, we're going to discuss the school resource officer in light of a lot of the feedback that you gave us at the last board meeting. I thought your questions were incredibly thoughtful. They were meaningful, and they enabled us to kind of pause a little bit and kind of reflect on what do we really want to take away from this position, and what is the ultimate utility that we can derive from it as a building. So the re-imaging of the position, the reshaping of the thinking and the conversation we had speaks to a 6-month position, a position that would run from January to June. And in that January to June time period, we'd be spending some time really doing an audit of our campus safety. Our campus is pretty dynamic. It has 11 buildings. It has a lot of entrances. It has a lot of doors. It also has a lot of community partnerships with people that come and go and support our students in a variety of different ways. We want to maintain that sense of openness because that's what makes Ithaca High School a really special place to be. The question is, how do we do that well and not just good, right, but great? How do we do this so that we know that the safety that we are providing is of a level that we can expect to be in place if at any time a crisis or an emergency situation were to evolve on campus. So we'll be looking at kind of studying ourselves and getting better. And to study ourselves and to get better, we need consistency in terms of the feedback that we're receiving. Having multiple people respond to the building when we call doesn't allow for one person to kind of see over an extended period of time the ebb and flow of the cycle of what we're being called to do and why we're responding the way that we are. Having one person who can give continuous feedback and give longitudinal data will really be helpful as we kind of engage and go through that process. One of the things we're also trying to think about, and it speaks a little bit to what Mike said and what Rowie said, is this idea of community policing and really kind of helping to break down some of the impressions that students have about police officers. And that's real, right? So let's just acknowledge it. But also how we can kind of reframe that and engage students in a dialogue and really engage the way we approach school safety as a community, right? In a community of learners. I think, when the Dow spoke about his own safety this evening, he was speaking from his heart, right? That was very real to him. And there's, a lot of realness to the entirety of this discussion. But having a conversation will make us better. We will come out of this much stronger and far more prepared to do the work that we're being asked to do. So the longitudinal goal of this position is to help us get data, to look at ourselves, to help us study ourselves, to build relationships with students and hear the comments and hear the feedbacks and be thoughtful and develop more thoughtful responses that can go into our school safety plan. And it's in those conversations that we're going to have with students, with the community, with the teachers, with ourselves as an administrative team, that we'll be able to really thoughtfully kind of reflect as to what we're willing to do and where we want to be, right? So the questions that were raised, do we lock all the doors? Do we lock none of the doors? Do we allow kids to have free periods? Do we not allow kids to have free periods? All those things are conversations about what level of risk and openness are we willing to tolerate as a community, and what does that mean in terms of how we respond thoughtfully. So this is about giving us a set of data. It's about giving us some meaningful feedback. It's about helping us engage the community in a conversation about school safety and having real and authentic conversations about how we can improve as a building. So that's where our thinking is this evening. We continue to advocate for the position. We believe it will be beneficial to us, and we hope to continue the dialogue in the days and weeks ahead.
And maybe that'll just frame it as a service more so than a position. Because typically when we think about positions, we think about multi-year. We're talking now a trial, 6 months. We have a specific set of needs that we want this person to help us with to move forward. If done well, maybe this person works himself or herself out of a job through the service they provide us this spring. So it's more of a service than a position that we're saying is going to be here for a long time, or any tenure, or being here forever. We just want someone to help us with this work. So that's it. We just wanted to update you, and I think we would love to hear some more reactions or thoughts. But we would like to move forward with defining this a bit more and bringing something to the board.
First comments, Brad first.
So so what's the plan? The plan is to bring it to Finance Committee next month and Board next month.
Yeah.
So no vote tonight. You're looking for comment tonight and then votes next time around.
Yeah, we plan to go back and talk with folks if the board wishes for us to start, or to continue the conversations. We'll be continuing conversation with IPD. Clearly define what it is we're looking for, work on the contract, and then bring it to finance, and then take that from finance to the entire board in the next meeting.
Chris, did you want?
We keep hearing about the position and safety, but what I really want to hear about is the overall plan that's in place for the school, and how do we rate? What tools are at our disposal? How effectively do we use them? You know, because I really feel that we may be putting unrealistic expectations on this position.
It's not a panacea.
It's not. But we need to speak in that language, and it's one piece to that puzzle. You know, we do have neighboring school districts that do have SROs, and they have incidences, you know, and it's not, they have not been able to answer that. Now, and honestly, I'm not for or against it at this point, but you know, if you buy a home security system and don't expect somebody to throw a rock through your window, you're being unrealistic. So where is the overall dialogue about the safety of the school and what we're doing, what we're putting in place?
So that conversation is the conversation that we're going to be engaging in over the next 6 months. To engage in that conversation intelligently about what resources there are available to us, what those resources look like, how they're being utilized in other schools, in other areas. We need someone with that background, with that training, with that credentialing to help us find it and allocate those resources effectively as part of the plan. We have a safe school plan. That safe school plan went into effect Thursday, right, when we had a device in K building. The students reported to you, we ran school. Our students learned. They might have been in a different classroom, they might have been in Cope Auditorium, but they were learning, and we were doing what Ithaca High School does, which is teach kids. So we have a plan. It's a good plan. I want us to get better, right? I can't settle for good when it comes to student safety, right? I have to keep looking and keep investigating, because that's my charge, right? To ensure that we are in a situation where we can respond to any situation, and some that we haven't even anticipated or thought about. And so to do that, we need to kind of do a self-study, right, or an audit of what our campus looks like and what our resources are and how well do we respond. And maybe, you know, we get straight A's, right? But maybe we don't. But if we don't have someone who can help us, guide us through that process, and really help us be self-reflect about what we can do better and where we can improve, we won't know. We won't know definitively and for sure.
And so what I'm hearing you say is that we're also not the experts in this area, so for us to self-evaluate ourselves isn't the right way to go forward.
In my opinion.
Michael, did you want to?
Yeah, if the plan was for the position to run January through June, and according to the back of the sheet, I don't know, the next finance committee is January 18th. Is this, are we moving backwards in terms of when you wanted this to start?
I don't think we're moving backwards, right? I think we're trying to be responsible. We're trying to listen. We're trying to acknowledge some of the fears and trepidations that the students have voiced. We're trying to be thoughtful in how we respond to those. We're not trying to impose something. We're trying to work with the resources of our community to help our school community become better and a safer place to be. To do that requires us to be thoughtful. To do that requires us to take the consideration of, you know, folks on the school board who are elected by the voters to ask the hard questions and take those questions and think about them, right? To sit as a leadership team and say, okay, what really do we want to achieve out of this? And it's also not to be reactionary, right? We're not attempting to be reactionary. The SRO was not going to come as a result of Thursday's incident in K hallway. We've been talking about the SRO for many, many months. Right? So the question is, how do you build a plan that's responsive, that's thoughtful, that takes into consideration of everyone who's participating in the dialogue, and if it happens before midterm week or after midterm week, If it happens and as a result of it happening, we get better, then I think that's okay. So there's a sense of urgency in me. There's always a sense of urgency in me, as you see when I'm running through the hall, right? Going from one class to the next, just in passing time. So I'm always about, let's get on with the work. But I think in some cases, slow is fast, right? And the more thoughtful we are about how we do this, the more consistent we are in the rollout, the more we make this less of a trepidating experience for our students, the better off we're going to be in the long run.
No, you had Noah next.
What are the planned hours for the SRO to be at the high school? I mean, there are students who get to the high school at 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning, and then there are students who leave 6:30, 7, 8, 9.
10.
Yeah.
So we were looking within the working school day, right? So a little bit before school starts, probably around the 8:30 mark, and probably a little bit after the 3:30 mark, 3:45ish, to cover the open school day. But there could be days where we flex the hours, right, to cover and assess our vulnerabilities. Because you're right, at 6 o'clock in the morning when you're there, I might still be sleeping. And so the question is, how do we respond thoughtfully to that, right? And what would a response look like when it's you, maybe one other adult in the building, and the custodians? And how can we get better? So we'll evaluate that and look at that and try to figure out how we can get better.
Go ahead, Ben.
Well, I'd like to start by saying I think it's a compliment to all of the teachers and all of the administrative team at the high school. The vast majority of students report that they feel safe. And I would just like to share some of the conversations that families in the district brought to me after the last meeting, which was in more ways a reflection of the really good work you've been doing this year. That the conversation has started with all of the positives about safety and security at Ithaca High School. The more students in more classes, skips being down, things like that, more order in the hallways, things that we have all noticed. And the question that I got over and over again is, if things are so good and so much better, why do we need a safety officer now? And this is something that parents who are, current parents, future parents, past parents, taxpayers are saying, what is the benefit? And I think that some clarification might be helpful, because we are in a better place. I know we strive for excellence, but this has been a concern that's been raised, and I've heard students go both ways. I've heard families go both ways. I thought that the comments by teachers last time of some of the classroom situations they had to handle without any kind of support, those are not the kinds of things that teachers should have to handle without support. And they're not really the kind of things that hall monitors can handle, or administrators. And I take credence in that. But I've also heard people say, what is this person going to do all day?
So that's a really thoughtful question. And what I will say is that over the next 6 months, the conversation that I intend to have with the board, whether it's through facilities, whether it's through finance, is to really, or whether it's through the position of an SRO, is to really look at school safety and leapfrog, right, other districts, right? I'm not content with the status quo. I don't think any of us are content with the status quo, because we always can improve, right? And I think if you look at where we're headed as a school, referrals are down, cuts are down, kids are engaged in learning more, achievement rates are up. There's a lot of really good things going on at Ithaca High School. To allow us to kind of continue to move forward, right, and to continue to improve, we need to also kind of look at the things that go beyond kind of classroom maneuvers and disciplinary actions and administrative procedures, but things that relate to the overall safety of the campus. And there are things that could come our way in a moment's notice that we may not have anticipated or thought of or considered, and all of a sudden we're being asked to respond in a moment's notice. To do that thoughtfully requires us to really think about it and have some deep conversations about it. I will admit that is not the entirety of my training. Right? I'm a geographer. I taught social studies. They say that I taught French. We're school administrators, but we are not first responders and law enforcement. We know what we think is prudent. We have a safe schools plan. We have a committee that meets. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure there are no blind spots, that we have covered and thought of almost most things, so that when a situation does arise, the response that you get is consistent with the level of excellence that you expect from us at the building level and from the district overall.
And if I could add, just like any other consultant coming in to work with us, we're going to push them also.
Mm-hmm.
We're not here to just take whatever recommendations that IPD or whoever comes in says do. Quite frankly, that they would probably go too far one way. We're here, we know how schools run, we know how teaching and learning should occur, and we're going to be promoting that, but also being as safe as we can as well. And those things, they will conflict at times, and those are the conversations we're hoping to have.
I would like to add that about 10 years ago, when I was doing college recruitment visits to schools in larger cities and on Long Island, I visited many, many schools with a police presence, and it was not a thoughtful presence. It was a guy in a gray uniform sitting at a desk or next to a metal detector checking my purse, and nothing creative and thoughtful or productive about the relationship between that officer and the school. And screening people at a lockdown front door may be successful in some ways, but it's not conducive to the learning atmosphere.
I'm not interested in that model. That model doesn't appeal to me. I expect our building, and I believe you expect us to be leaders in this, to define the position the way that we need to define it to serve the interests of our students and our school community. And I believe that if afforded the position in the 6 months that it would be present in the building, you would see a distinctly different model that would actually have people wondering why they haven't thought about doing community policing and working with students in that way before. Really partnering with kids, building relationships, evaluating the school, engaging people in conversations about school safety, not someone standing at the door with a wand. I'm not interested in that, because that's not what Ithaca High School is.
To that point, there is another partner here. It's the city of Ithaca and the police department. Dr. Brown should, we talked about this a little bit. And I will just, I don't always believe everything I see in the paper, what is written in the paper, what is quoted in the paper, but last week's Ithaca Times, they talked about the Common Council approving the school resource officer, and quotes from the mayor, basically stating that the school district covered approximately 75% of the position's cost. The city would pay for the remainder of the cost. It was, blah, 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 but the chief, quote unquote, the chiefs will choose the officer based on the chiefs, and I take that not to mean Matt or Jason, right? The chiefs will choose the officer based on criteria that they will receive from the school district and what the school district is looking for, said Myra. And then once the officer is assigned, I'm wearing my glasses so I can read this, it's the school district that will determine which campus they want them on. My understanding is that, especially at first, they will be staying at the high school campus. Should there be a conflict between what the officer would like to do in the district and what the school district would like done, the issue would be worked out between the superintendent and the mayor, Myrick said. Myrick added there have been no hiccups with the negotiations so far. But the details of the agreement are still being worked out. I would say that's a gross misunderstanding of what we're trying to do. I'm going to say that certainly we're not voting on this tonight, but this is there has to be a negotiation. I had a glib comment that Dr. Brown is aware of that I'm probably not going to go there. But if that's the model that the city wishes us to engage in, I can only say that model will fail. And I have great confidence in our administrative, your leadership, Jared. But if we are at the mercy of this position being managed from afar, chosen from afar, I don't see how this is to our benefit at all. So So there's been negotiations that have already happened. But if that is at all accurate in the mayor's mind, then I'm not sure how we go forward from here. And I guess I will say it anyway because I need to brighten my day a little bit. If City Hall, if that's where City Hall thinks we're going, then they've been smoking too much of what the mayor wants to legalize.
So the details touch.
Okay, bro.
To continue to work on the details is my response to that. And we have not gotten to that level of detail with the mayor. We hope to engage in those conversations in the coming weeks about this particular issue, not the other one you mentioned, but this particular issue.
No, that's a politic. That's a political thing.
We need to engage in this conversation further and hopefully bring a consensus and understanding to you.
But the point is that we've had an SRO before, and for whatever reason, I think there were reasons that it was discontinued. There's reasons that the SRO was instituted, was engaged, was paid for by the city at that time. The city does not have the funds, so it will be essentially paid for by the district. I think the person who is going to do this is critical, and I'm not sure of the pool, but obviously be critical, and it will only work if there's a tremendously close collaboration between the leadership, the students, the staff. So. Sean, go ahead.
Two things. One, I want to reiterate what I think I heard a number of board members say, not what I think, what I know I heard a number of board members say about our students and their willingness and wanting us to come share their perspective and opinions with us. Again, that's absolutely fantastic. To Nancy and Roy, we're giving statistics about sort of folks who feel safe. The one question that I had, while it's phenomenal and heartwarming that a vast majority of our students feel safe in our buildings, what I kept thinking about myself is, in many regards, that an SRO would be for those 15% or 20% students who do not feel safe, and trying to balance those stats and statistics and data in that regard. And I'm not sure I'm for the SRO yet. I need to be convinced. And what I want to say to our leadership as we progress, and partially maybe a response to what our board president, Mr. Ainsley, said, I would dare say that maybe our young mayor is not trying to legalize anything, but decriminalize something, which for me is a little different notion in terms of how we're putting people in incarceration. And so in the research that I do, there's a great deal of research about what we call the school to prison pipeline. That in many regards, schools become early training grounds of how to put people in incarceration. And if we're adding police officers into our schools, in many regards preparing them for what the possibility of being observed, the possibility of being watched over, the possibility of all those things sort of may only increase some of our young folks actually ending up in either our county jail or our prisons, rightfully and or wrongfully. And so as the administration thinks about this idea of an SRO model, to be thinking about the ways in which, at least in some education circles, having conversations, that this pipeline between school and prisons are actually far too strong, and that we're not doing things to increase that pipeline or strengthen that pipeline, because many of the students that are the most without an active voice would be the students who are much more likely to be caught up, again, for me, wrongfully in that regard. And so I just want to make sure that's on the forefront of your minds as we're progressing forward with any sort of conversation about a student resource officer.
So, Sean, to that end, and something the board may not know about me, is that I sit on the Tompkins County Board for Alternative to Youth Incarceration. It's one of the meetings that I attend monthly. It's run in the courthouse. And we talk consistently about how we can find alternatives to incarceration, how we can encourage young people to make different choices. And we meet with the community agencies and we partner and bring a lot of those partnerships back to the building to kind of take proactive steps so that we are not a pipeline. And it's actually work I'm quite passionate about. So I'm eager to engage in a conversation with you or others about how we can prevent that, SRO or no SRO, how we can shift that equation at the school level is important and meaningful.
Sure, and I'm sure, as you know, I'm extremely willing to engage in that conversation at any point in time. And I also want to make sure that as we engage in that conversation as a district, we're also having that conversation with our partners. So they understand the perspective we're coming from as well. And so it's one thing for us to understand this internally. It's a much other thing for us to engage in it with the mayor and with our police chiefs understand the exact sort of innovative, creative ways in which we may be thinking about using this, as opposed to what's traditionally done is really just increasing the pipeline to make sure that we get folks in jail sooner.
Right, exactly. And Sean, thank you. That really was my point, is other than the other stuff, but here not to do what they wanted to do, but what not a. Well, yeah, it's said well, Sean. So I'm not going on. But I will just go back to something you said earlier, Jared. Let's hang on here. That you did not expect the SRO to be a cure-all. No. So the obvious question is, a cure-all for what? So what has to be cured? So that's what we're going. Is it certainly we are not doing this because Ithaca High School is an unsafe place where the students feel unsafe. So it's not a cure-all. So
in other words,
so we're going to have that conversation.
But I think
go ahead, Sean.
And maybe, I'm not sure it's a conversation we need to have this evening. It may be, right, but I think it's something to come up. And I would dare say what I also heard Mr. Malcolm say, is that at some point in time, if it's not a cure-all, then how is it in the context of the larger safety plan? And we'd probably be best served for you being able to present at some point in time that larger plan in context for us, we better understand the ways in which this one piece may use. And so, again, it may not be a conversation for this evening, but it may be the way in which we frame this. Since we were talking about, students talking about the way in which we framed it makes a big difference. But also it gives us the context of how this fits with everything else that's been done, particularly giving some of the changes to our safety plan at the high school in particular this year as well.
Go ahead, Mike.
We obviously got the perspective of some students here, both bringing other perspectives in with their own, but I would encourage some type of forum to be held, possibly after we come back from break, to which the whole community is involved, and particularly students are encouraged to come to, with whichever other school leaders are able to attend, and maybe even other community partners that would be engaged in this, so we can really have a more open forum where everyone, both community members and especially students, can voice their opinions, because I'm not sure, other than sort of the both formal and informal work that we've done to present you with student opinions, maybe that could be done a bit more proactively.
Is there...
I guess I just want to offer my opinion as a student from LACS that takes 2 classes at Ithaca High School. And even though I don't really know the school that well, I do feel safe when I go there. But I kind of feel like, that was a great statistic that so many students felt safe, but even if 10% of the students feel unsafe, that's still well over 100 students. And that's substantial, and I think it's important to make sure every single student feels safe, if at all possible. And so whether this school resource officer, I definitely don't think that's going to solve all of the problems, but I think a 6-month trial is definitely something worth trying if there's 100 students that don't feel safe.
Back to Ellen. Michaela, did you have? No, it's just Michael waving at something down there. Brad, go ahead.
I'm going to say we still haven't heard, we asked last time, uniformed or armed, and I still haven't heard whether you've had further thoughts on that or where you are.
So where I'm in my thinking is uniformed and armed. Subject to negotiation and the contract, but that's...
Yeah. And we're unsure. These are the conversations we need to have. I'm not sure it's allowed in their contract to be on duty without being in uniform or armed. So there's some things there are many conversations to be had as we work through the details of the contract. And we're hoping to have that for you in the coming.
I'll just say I'm concerned. I would prefer otherwise. And that'll... I'll say I can't decide how I'm going to vote, Rick, if that's the case.
I just one more time like to encourage both Dr. Brown and Mr. Powers to organize some type of student forum open to the rest of the community, but I do think it's really important that you hear the perspectives, not just of the 6 of us that spoke today, but of anyone else in the school that has an opinion.
And do me a favor, the community forums are great, but sharing with your friends and colleagues the last 2 board meetings via video, because we've had some deep discussions about this. This has been a very open process in many ways. But again, an opportunity for everyone to come into a big auditorium and talk about it more was something we would engaged in also, but the conversations that have occurred over the last month at this table in this public fashion have been good as well.
Other next steps? I'm not getting no other comments at the time. Are we good with questions? There's still more answers to come. Next steps are?
We'll bring something, we plan to bring something to the Finance Committee.
January 18th at 6 p.m.
Yeah. The details in the contract, and we'll go from there.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Power.
Thank you.
A few more items of business. Something about policies that were added. Second reading of.
Yep.
And I don't know, Brad, as our parliamentarian procedure person, we amended the agenda with a slight error. We're not going to be talking about policy 4750, retention of students. We want to give the public a little bit more time to consume and take a look at that and have some conversations. We've had some dialogues with NISBA about that, with the New York State School Board Association about our policy.
Table that one?
If we could, but we meant to add another policy that was not beyond policy 60, what is it? 6252, which is the idling of school buses. What we need to pass and discuss this evening is policy 7100, the pest management and pesticide usage. That was also tabled last. This would be a second reading of that policy.
Is that in Dropbox? Because that was not distributed.
We do have it. We would have to send it as email.
I'll pass that around, please.
Yes.
As long as
Is it under the policy committee?
it's in the December 18th meeting.
And there's 3 pages to the policy, so folks can see it coming around there.
No, it's not in the December 18th meeting.
So if need be, what I think I'd recommend, if we need to take a break so people can read the policy, because these are 2 policies that are needed for part of the NYSERDA rebate by the end of this year for things that we've been doing. So yes, we can take 5 and come back and then have a conversation about that.
Can we modify? Do we have to modify the agenda to add the policy?
I'll move to modify the agenda to add policy number
7100.
Thank you.
Seconded by Chris, and we'll consider that in 5 minutes after we read it and get some water.
Yes. The chips, we're trying to get some rebates by the end of the year, so these deal with energy. So the first policy is 6252. It's idling of school buses on school grounds. This is the second reading. Jim Ellis has taken a look. He's gone through and edited. We've had a quick conversation. Most of this, the district, not most of this, all this district is already doing anyway, that we try not to idle buses when we don't need to save on gas and emissions.
So questions, anything, any mature, there's no really changes?
There's no changes. The only thing that we note is that there are only 3 exceptions for our idling buses and for mechanical work, to maintain an appropriate temperature and to operate our wheelchair lifts. Beyond that, all our buses will be turned off when they're parked.
Sounds good. Remind me again, Brad, do we have to move them now, or?
No, we can call the question.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do that. All in favor of those of us who are not talking? Here we go. What's it mean?
I know
everyone?
this thing like the back of my hand.
She's the one.
Good. The policy 1.
That's policy 1.
The next policy, thank you very much, is policy 7100. It's pest management and pesticide usage. And it's not that we're advocating pesticide usage. In fact, we're doing quite the opposite. We're trying to limit as much as possible.
We've received awards for how little.
That's right.
Use it.
And for the board members, this has also gone through Margaret Boyce's office and Paul Alexander's office. Mr. Alexander has read it and is in agreement that we're doing all this. And as Brad just indicated, and more, we've been noted for our very environmentally safe approach to pest management.
Is this policy 07 or is it just 7?
This is policy 7100. Thank you, Mr. Peacock. 7100. We haven't got to the 7000 series yet, but it's coming, trust me. All 95 pages of it, whatever it is.
In this life or
So if there's, and you can see the policy again, this is the second reading. There's been no changes since the first reading and the second reading.
All right, good. And if there's been no changes, and if it does meet everything that we need to do, we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor? That's everyone.
And then just a reminder that policy 4750, the retention of students, we'll make sure it's up in the public drop box. That we expect to have a discussion about amongst the board in the January meeting. And so if folks have questions or comments about it, please feel free to take a look and give us your feedback, and we'll go from there.
Very good. Sean, no other policies tonight, right?
No, we're good.
We're finishing up for 2012 on a high note that we passed policies, so that's a good thing. And this is the last voting meeting of 2012. Calendar year, obviously not the school year, but to be noted, it's the last meeting, right? We don't meet next week, or there's no committee meetings, right?
No.
Next week, so it looks like we have a week off, and we're going to enjoy that with our families. But are there any other business by?
A quick question: if I'm not going to see you all for next week, what do I do?
I feel the same way.
You are free to move about the country.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Hey, can I just briefly? Everyone noticed we have these books that every board member has, and I tease a lot about. This book and having to read books and things like this, but it is important. It is important, basically what the book says, as Jenny tells me, is it's about how we treat each other, and the idea that the board's going to take some time and think about how we treat each other as a board, and then think about how that goes down throughout the whole district is pretty important. So even though I tease about having to look at this stuff, it's pretty important how we build relationships and how we set the district up to educate our kids as best we can. So,
you mean the touchy-feely stuff? Yeah. I always thought my bucket was pretty full.
Very much. And the committee dates, some of those have changed recently. You just want to make sure they all look good to everybody.
Thank you, Penny. Just take a quick look. Yes.
Did Margaret and or Angela tell you the 18th for finance? Is that how you made that change?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I'm not sure how that happened.
Okay.
And you got also a change for policy in January.
From January 10th to January 24th?
Yes.
Right. That's official versus...
That's official.
Yeah, okay.
Sean and I will be separately globetrotting for educational purposes.
That is correct.
Once again, I'm going nowhere. But Brad, is the finance that day, or wasn't it another day? Is that the state district is closed?
Yeah, that's why I'm asking the question, because it's listed as a Friday.
It is a Friday.
We didn't agree to a Friday.
It was Monday.
We agreed to an hour before the school board meeting on that Tuesday, which was the 22nd.
And then, so I'm going to have to say we got to be careful. That meeting is incorrect. We're going to have to get that posted after you talk with Margaret and Angela tomorrow.
So I'll just wipe that off the minutes.
I suspect she means Thursday the 17th. I think that was the intent, but I don't know that. Neither of them are here, so I don't want to change it. But that,
before we publish the minutes, I'll make sure that's accurate.
But
thank you.
And just a bit of work that would have to be coordinated between you and Mr. Harris as the other committee member, since I'll be out of the country until the 21st.
Okay. That's right.
We're doing it for you.
That's why I thought we said the 22nd.
I thought we were going to do we're going to be doing it later.
Actually, I thought it was 22nd because of that.
We were going to do a short meeting on the 22nd, and then we're going to pick a day, either Wednesday or Thursday of that
week. That's right.
So that would be either the 23rd or the 24th. So I unfortunately earlier read the date off of the agenda here, and that was incorrect.
Just to clarify.
So it's changed to January 22nd at 5.
That's just going to be a short meeting at 5. We're going to keep the agenda on that to basically the consideration of accounts.
Okay.
And then we were going to have a full meeting either the Wednesday or Thursday.
That's correct.
Whichever day worked for Angela and Margaret.
Okay, so they need to let me know which day. Okay.
You need to ask them.
Okay.
But Sean, we've moved to that Thursday the 24th, and you're on both committees. So we're at 5 o'clock.
We'll figure it out.
I run efficient meetings. We can get them both in.
And we can't have finance or policy without Sean. I mean, it's obvious.
Somebody's recognizing Rob. This is
It's become obvious that the business of the district cannot go forward. Are we set on, we're going to at least have a short meeting with finance on the correct day, on the day of the board meeting?
Day of the board meeting, we have a short meeting.
We have to review that, which we will vote on at the meeting. Thank you. And then we'll go from there. If there's no other changes, any other questions, comments, any other business? A motion?
As an educator, as someone who's taught in the Ithaca City School District, who still has friends here, I know it's been a tough week, and it's one of those things, it's one of those moments where, despite the difficulty, how much I appreciate and respect all of my colleagues and teachers who are doing exceptionally profound work. And so I just want to make sure that folks heard that.
Well said, Sean. And I'm sure they will. Go ahead, sir.
Move that we adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor, without objection, we are adjourned. Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.